Okay, perfect. A very good morning to everyone. Hope you are all doing well. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. My name is Chris, and I'm one of the Shortcuts content and training specialists. So this morning we're going to be going through one of our newest features, and that is our related service. Now, related services. Now, it's an absolutely fantastic feature to have. The beautiful aspect about it is, as you're going to see throughout this morning's masterclass, it's a fantastic way to organically upsell. It's a great way for your clients to create a more sort of bespoke package when they do book online. But one of the best features about it, not only are we going to increase our revenue for a very small outlay, it can be set up in roughly sort of 5 to 10 minutes. So feel free, if you do have this set up, feel free to do it alongside me. If you are watching and you don't have this set up, not a problem. We can discuss pricing at the end. Just drop me an email. We can get you set up very quickly with that. Lovely stuff. Perfect. So yeah, good morning. We're literally just getting started now. Okay, so if this is your first time joining me in one of my masterclasses, thank you ever so much for taking the time. As with all of my masterclasses, we usually have a very brief PowerPoint presentation followed by a live demonstration. And as of recently, I've wanted to get into the fun stuff, and I've spent the majority of my time with my live demonstration. Well, as is the case with related services, because it is so very quick and simple to set up, the live demonstration side of things is literally going to be around 5 to 10 minutes long. We will run over a couple of reports, but the majority of it is going to be a PowerPoint presentation. So if you are joining me this morning, the duration of this class will be approximately 30 to 45 minutes. One of the shorter ones for this Monday morning, but as I said, it's very quick to get set up. My microphone is switched on as always, whereas everyone else has automatically been muted. And your speakers must be turned on to hear this webinar. So just take a few minutes now, as I do always say, get yourself comfortable and just make sure you can just hear me nice and loud. Questions will be taken during or at the end of the masterclass, and I don't mind how you do that. If you want to pop a little comment in the chat box, feel free to. If you want to unmute yourself, have a chat with me, feel free to as well. It's absolutely fine to do. So as we said, it's going to be about 30 to 45 minutes. As always, my classes will be uploaded. They are recorded and then uploaded to YouTube. All you need to do is just type in on YouTube Shortcuts UK, and you'll find that there. And then they usually go in like date order, so you should be able to find this and all my previous classes as well. And in the next couple of days, you should be receiving some emails for our future classes going out for April. Okay, so then of course the most important thing, introducing our related services feature. So it's very easy to get set up. We can see just 3 very quick screenshots here. Basically is how quick and how simple it is to get set up. And we're going to have a live demonstration in about 15 minutes time, and you can do it alongside me if you wish to as well. So then, what is related and recommended services? So we're going to talk about 2 different things really there. As an entity, we call it related or required, whichever it may be. But essentially, we're going to talk about 2 different entities, related and recommended services. Okay, so it's a sophisticated new way to assist clients making online bookings. You can create service pairings that prompt clients to select a finishing service or suggest complementary services. So that selecting a finishing service is your related, your required, and suggesting those complementary services. I say complementary means it will complement it. I don't mean we're necessarily going to give it away free. So hopefully it doesn't confuse anyone. We're going to complement services. So related services refers to online booking enhancements that introduce 2 types of service relationships: required services and recommended services. So you will get both in the package. So both these new service relationships enable improved service selection capabilities for clients when making an online booking. In addition to this, it gives you the power to create more sophisticated service associations. So what we are going to see is our related and recommended services, a fantastic way to organically upsell. And as we said, we're going to give more power to create more sophisticated service associations. So then, First and foremost are required services, okay? So required service relationships. So what is it exactly? So the required service functionality allows your business to specify when a specific service is selected. A mandatory service must also be selected to complete an online booking. Essentially meaning when this specific service is selected, the client must also choose a service from this list of other services. So we're essentially bridging the gap between two different services. So it could be when we book a color, we require a cut, we require a blow dry, we require a cut and blow dry. For example, if a client selects from the highlights category, the client must also choose one of the required services presented, being a cut, blow dry, or a cut and a blow dry. And you can choose whichever ones, they're all specific to your services. So then this simple relationship now presents itself whenever a client makes a booking online containing a highlight service. Without any help from your business, the client can easily create a fully complete color booking. So we haven't needed to intervene, we haven't needed to help them or anything like that. They can literally choose that mandatory service, the color, and it will prompt them to book a required service, a cut or blow dry. And of course, ultimately, this solves the problem of a client not choosing an essential required service as part of the booking process by making it an easy step-by-step process. So we know we've all been there, ladies and gents, haven't we? A client has booked online for those full head of highlights, but they haven't added on that cut or that blow dry. Now, as is the case with most businesses, most salons that I speak to, we are essentially saying we do require that cut, we do require that blow dry. It's a fantastic way to finish that service off. And we know how difficult it is that client books online and they don't choose that cut, they don't choose that blow dry. And then, of course, when they do come in, they often say, oh, have you got time for a quick blow dry? Have you got time for a quick cut? And of course, we don't. We're very busy. We don't have time for that. So this way, it alleviates that problem. So that's our required services. But alongside your required services, you're also going to have your recommended services. Okay, so the recommended service functionality assists with organic upselling during the online booking process by allowing your business to make a recommendation of a complementary service or services when specific services are selected during an online booking. Now, again, when we say complementary, we don't mean we're going to give them away free. We just mean it's going to complement that service. So it may be a tone or it may be a treatment. So, for example, if a client selects a service from the highlights category, they would also be offered some additional service recommendations, such as a conditioning treatment or a protein treatment. Recommended services takes away that awkward interaction with customers and instead allows the client to feel like they have the freedom and time to choose extra services if desired. With recommended services, you can create fully custom and automated recommendations. This could be to create a relationship that recommends your most popular service on every booking, or you could create specific recommendations like a manicure whenever a service from the pedicure category is selected. Okay, so it's an organic way to upsell. We've all done it. We've been online shopping, we've been looking at clothes, and then it says, oh, would you like these shoes? Would you like this handbag? And it's a great way moving through the online booking process to sort of organically upsell, to try and enhance that booking experience by recommending that conditioning treatment, by recommending a protein treatment, by recommending a toner, by recommending a pedicure with a manicure and things like that. So that is our required services. That is our related services. It's very quick and very simple to get set up. But if you do want to get your hands on this or to learn more about this new feature, contact our customer care team on 0161 972 4900, option 1 and then option 2. So we're now going to jump into our live demonstration. Now, before we get into the actual setting up of your related and recommended services, there's a few things just to double check in the background. You don't necessarily have to do this per se, but it is worth just double checking. And then we'll jump straight into the setting up of the feature. So the first thing I'm going to do, ladies and gents, is I'm going to open up my Shortcuts Fusion system, but this can also be done in Shortcuts Live. But the first thing I'm going to do is open up my Shortcuts Fusion system. Okay, so what we would need to do is always remember your related and recommended services is only really applicable to online booking. So the first thing we would do is just simply double check that the services are available for online booking. Now at this stage, 99% of you will probably find that those services are available for online booking, but it is worth just checking that now. So all we need to do is just go to Setup and in Services. And then on the left-hand side, we're going to expand the category by clicking that plus sign, and you should have a web column just here. Then all we're going to do is we're going to go down and just double check that the services that we want to be available for related and recommended services are available here for online booking. And we would just go ahead and just double check all of that now. So for example, it may be worth just checking all of your color services, all of your styling services, all of your treatments, and any other services you feel may be required or you may wish to recommend. And we're just going to tick those web boxes just there. Now, for any of you watching that may have what we call a finishing block set up, so you may have a full head of highlights and a finishing block set up. This may not be applicable to all of you, so don't worry if you don't have this set up. So for example, I think I have one under my color category here. So you can see here under my color service, I've got a finishing block. So if we just look at the details there, you can see I have a finishing block. Now that essentially would mean if a client originally, this is pre-related services, if you had finishing blocks set up to block out extra time for a potential cut or a potential blow dry. If you do have these set up, as long as you have this finishing box here ticked, any related service now set up and booked online will override this, as long as the finishing tick box here is ticked. But moving forward, it will probably be worth completely getting rid of these finishing services if you do have them set up, because now you've got related services that will completely override these finishing blocks anyway. If you do want to get rid of them, just work backwards. What that means is take the tick out, then delete the points, then delete the costs, and then delete the sell price. So just work backwards through that. If you try and do it the other way, it won't work. So just always work backwards, just like that there. And then just click done. Okay. Now that, again, please don't worry if you don't have that set up or if that's not something you've got set up. You won't be required to set that up with required and recommended services. Okay, so we've got all of our services available for online booking. It may also be worth just very quickly, when we look at what we call primary services, so that's a bit of a buzzword. When we look at our primary services, essentially that's a service that has to be booked first when a client books online. You may wish to just add some details and a description for that service as well. So if we go into details, we just pop a nice little description in the top left there. Again, you don't have to do this. You may just wish to put a little description in there and just saying this service will require an additional service to be booked as well. And that is where our required services will come into play. Okay, so we've got all of our services available for online booking there, all of the ones we want to recommend and everything like that. The next thing we are going to do is we're going to open up our online console. So I'm going to navigate to my preferred internet browser, and I'm just going to type in the website URL console.shortcutssoftware.com. console.shortcutssoftware.com. And again, something just very quickly worth checking is while we are here, we're just going to click the center tile, online booking settings. And then what we're going to do, we're going to scroll all the way down about halfway till we get to our service booking order. Now, what is our service booking order? Now, essentially, when our clients book online, we need them to book their services in a specific order. And again, this is completely related, shall we say, to related and recommended services, but this was created pre-related and recommended services. So what it essentially means is when a client books online, we would typically want them to book the color before the cut, because that's typically how we do the service, and it's sort of governed by times and things like that. And it will work exactly the same when a client books both a primary color and then a required cut and or blow dry. So we need to ensure that the service sequence is in the correct order. Now, again, this will probably already be set up, but it is just worth checking here. For example, if I scroll down, we've got things like hair color is sequence order number 1. That essentially means hair coloring will be booked first. So if a client did book it the wrong way around, it would automatically book hair coloring first. So if a client booked cut before the color, the system will put it the correct way around. So we've got hair color as 1, and you can see things we've got treatments is 2, and then styling is 3. You can change that to 2 if you want to, so you could have that as 2 as well. That would work perfectly fine. Essentially, what we want is we just really want the color to be 1 and the styling, the treatments to be 2 or 3 or 2 for both of them, if that's the way you want it to be. And then we just click save. So once we've got that service booking order, again, the majority of you watching will probably already have this in the correct order. Again, it's worth just checking it now, because the last thing we want is a client to be booking online and they end up booking the cut before the color. So once you've made those changes, we're just going to click save in the top right, and then we're just going to click home as well, just here. Now, again, before we get into setting up our related and recommended services, like I said, it's only going to take a few minutes to do. It may be worth just adding in a little bit of extra text just to let your clients know that they will be required to book an additional service. And you can do this under company settings on the left-hand side here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to scroll all the way down to things here, such as our please note text. So you can see here, currently my text, and yours may be the same, says our color services do not include a finishing service, e.g. a cut or a blow dry. Please select a finishing service with any color service booked. If you have something written like that, it may be worth just tweaking it and just saying you will now be required to book a finishing service such as a cut or a blow dry, just in case they read this and think, oh, it says I didn't have to. It's worth just outlining that to clients as well. So again, that's just under your company settings, and then please note text. And then when you've made those changes, just in the top right, just click save. So it's a fantastic way to just outline your new feature. Then from here, ladies and gents, we're going to click home, and we are now ready to set up our related required and recommended services. And this is all done through the cloud if you're a Fusion user, or can be set up through your live system. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to cloud in the top right. And then on the left-hand side, we're going to click the menu icon in the top left. And we are going to scroll all the way down till we see the option products and services. Now, if you're watching, feel free to do this alongside me if you feel confident enough to. If you haven't been quite set up with related and recommended services, you will not have the products and services icon here. We can get that set up with you afterwards. So you can see here, we're just going to click onto related services. And you'll be presented with a blank screen here. So what we're going to do is we're going to click new in the bottom right-hand corner. And we're going to type in the name. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do a required service or a related service, okay? So I'm going to type in the name. It is all for our benefit. So I'm going to say required when making a color service booking. Keep the active box selected here, and then we're going to go to the relationship. So we're going to click the drop down arrow. We're going to say we require another service. So you can see here we've got primary services and then requires at least one of. So my primary service is a service that is going to be booked first, e.g. my color. So essentially I want to say when we book a color, it requires at least one of, such as a cut or a blow dry. So my primary service, I'm going to click select services. And you can see here we've got all of my service categories that are available for online booking. If you want it to be a primary service for all of your hair color, now they don't have to choose all of them. It just means all of the services you choose here will require an additional service. So you can tick the box if you want it to be all hair color, or if you want to specify, you can click the drop down arrow to the right and just go ahead and manually select as you go along here. And then when you're happy, simply click done in the bottom right. So we've now said we've got 5 primary services. So when one of those 5 primary services, or all of those primary services, if that's what the client is doing, when one of those primary services booked, I'm going to say it requires at least one of. So I'm going to say when we book one of my 5 primary services, it requires one of my styling services. So if it's applicable to all styling services, you can tick the box here. Or if you want to specify your specific styling services, you can do this here. Now remember, ladies and gents, it requires at least one of. So if you are ticking all of them here, that isn't saying when we book a primary service, they have to have all 4 or all 5. It requires at least one of. We're giving them a variation. So you can essentially sort of say, it's going to be all of them if you wish to. And then we just click done. In the bottom right, we just simply click save. And it is as simple as that. So we have now said required when making a color booking. So when a client chooses one of these 5 primary color services, highlights, etc., one of those will require at least one of my 7 secondary services, such as styling, such as a cut and blow dry. And it is as simple as that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up a recommended service. So this essentially will not force the client to book an additional service. It's going to simply recommend an additional service. So what I'm going to do is click new, and I'm going to say at the top, recommend a treatment when booking online. And again, underneath, I'm going to choose the relationship, and I'm now going to say I recommend other services. So again, we've got those primary services. So if it was me and something like this, because when I set up my required services, I said, when we book a color, it requires a styling service. My recommendations are going to be against those styling services because they're often going to be booked and they will always be booked alongside a color. So I'm going to choose my primary service again, and I'm going to choose my styling services just here. And again, I'm going to say it's going to be for all of them. And then we click done. And then underneath, I'm going to now select my recommended services that will pop up when we choose one of my primary services online. And I'm going to go to my treatments just here and select my conditioning treatment. And we just click save in the bottom right. So again, what we've said here, when a client books online and chooses one of my 12 primary services, which was my styling services, so when a client books a styling service, I'm going to recommend my conditioning treatment. Now that will be an organic upsell. It's not going to force them to book that secondary treatment or anything like that. It's literally going to recommend it. And that is it. In less than 5 minutes, ladies and gents, we have set up both a recommended and a required service. So how does this then look? So if we go to our online booking on the right-hand side, now if you do require your online booking URL, if you do have it, for example, on your website, please feel free to go to that now. If not, I can give you the URL to do so. I would recommend just giving it just a very quick refresh just to ensure, it does take any changes into account. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a booking. So you'll notice here, there's my please note text that we potentially may wish to change from the company settings where we said earlier about the text here, our important please note text. So when we click on to next, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to choose a color service. Now, as soon as I click onto those 4 header highlights, remember this was set up to say it requires a secondary service. So we can see here, requires an additional service. So we cannot proceed until we choose one of those secondary additional services. So I'm going to add on that blow dry. And of course, if you are using if you are using patch tests and things like that set up, this will just pop up here. And we can see on the right-hand side. So let's take a quick look at this on the right-hand side. So we can see here we've got my full head of highlights and we've got a cross next to it. But against my required service, my ladies blow dry, you'll notice we've got this information icon. If I click onto that, it says this type of service is required by my full head of highlights. So we've thought of that as well, ladies and gents. It will stop clients trying to be sneaky and thinking, oh, I'll just cancel that blow dry afterwards. I don't want it. Then what we do is we click next. And you can see here straight away, this is where my recommended service will come into play. So if you remember, when I book a styling service, that was my recommended service. When I book a styling service, it now comes up with my recommendation for my conditioning treatment. So it says you may also like, often booked with a ladies blow dry, a conditioning treatment. And I'm just going to go ahead and add that on. And then we just go through that there. And that is it, ladies and gents. So you can see straight away, we've added 200% to the client's bill. We've got that ladies blow dry added on. And we've also got that conditioning treatment as well. So we've taken a service bill that was going to be £10, and we've now made it 30%. So a fantastic way there to organically upsell and increase the average spend of your clients. And it's a fantastic way as well to give that little extra service as well. The client from there would just go ahead and make the booking as normal, choose a time and everything like that. Now, a top tip for you this morning, ladies and gents, is you may be thinking to yourself, well, how do I know which service I want to do? So, which service am I going to recommend? You may wish to recommend one of your top selling services. Some of you will probably go ahead with my sort of tip there of recommending a treatment. We feel everyone can benefit from a treatment. But there is just one report I'd like you to look at. Now, this particular report, ladies and gents, isn't directly related to required and recommended services, but it may help you make a bit more of an informed decision. So, for example, if we go to Tools on the right-hand side, and if we click onto Reports, and then towards the bottom left-hand corner, we can click onto Services. And we're going to go down to Top Selling Services. So you might be thinking, well, I want to recommend another service. I might go ahead with Chris's tip there of, doing a treatment when we book a styling service online. But what about if I want to see my top selling services, such as recommending a manicure to go with a pedicure, or maybe I just want to recommend my top selling services when a client books online. So we click onto View, and you may wish to do for like the last 6 months or the current year or the last 6 months, the last year, something like that. Let's have a look at the current year. I know we're only sort of 4 months in, but let's take a little look. So you can see here, we've got my top services as my cut and finish. So again, that might tell me straight away when a client is booking online for a color, when we're talking about our required services, when that client books online for a color, we may wish to say it requires a cut and finish to go alongside that, because that is one of our top services. We can also see like dry cuts. And again, balayage, one of our top selling services. Again, you might think that's definitely going to be one of my primary required services. Again, that service that is booked first. And again, we can see half head of highlights. Again, definitely let's make that in our required services as one of the primary services there. And underneath, we can see things like emulsion treatments. Okay, emulsion treatments would be a great upsell, would be a great recommendation. Let's make that available online. It's a top selling service. Let's make it available online. And then when we do in our recommended services, rather than just having the conditioning treatment that I set up, let's also recommend that emulsion treatment because it is one of my top selling services. So like I said, that report isn't directly related to required and recommended services, but you can use that as a stepping stone to make a bit more of an informed decision. And then we're just going to click that. And that is it, ladies and gents. Like I said, a nice, quick, nice, simple one for this Monday morning. And it was literally 30 minutes. And as we can see there, the beauty of that, not only can we increase our service bill by 200 to 300% potentially, as you saw in my example. Obviously, that might might be the same for everyone, but it is a great way to increase the average bill for very little outlay per month. And as we can see the beauty of it, ladies and gents, it can be set up in just a few minutes. So hopefully everyone wants to get involved in that. We have seen some absolutely fantastic feedback over the last couple of months about people that have seen a massive increase in revenue. If you do want to get your hands on that, please do give our customer care team a call. They can be got hold of on 0161 972 4900 option 1 and then option 2, and they can outline all the costs associated with that. And we can get that set up with you in sort of 10-15 minutes and have you getting those related and recommended services moving forward. Thank you ever so much for joining me this morning. As always, ladies and gents, if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop those across to me now. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. What I would probably say, one of the best things to do is it's quite common that when we set up a required service, so if we say we're going to book a colour and that requires a cut and blow dry or any kind of styling service, when we then go ahead and do our recommended service, as with my example, I would only then recommend against styling. I wouldn't do a recommendation of a treatment against a styling service and then a recommendation of a treatment against a color service, because what's going to happen when it gets to the screen where it says you may also like often booked, if you set them up for both cut and color, if a client is booking a cut and a color, it's going to say recommend a treatment often booked with color conditioning treatment, often booked with a blow dry a condition treatment. It's kind of going to recommend the same treatments twice. So I would probably just do a recommendation against styling, because if you've set up styling to be booked with color, those styling services are always going to be visible. Those color services are always going to be visible. So you only need to do a recommendation against one of those categories. Otherwise, you're just recommending the same treatments for both categories twice. You only need to do it once. So just do it against the styling services, as in my example there. Perfect, lovely. Thank you ever so much. I think that's it for all of the questions this morning. Thank you ever so much for joining. Hopefully, if you did that alongside me, hopefully you were able to get that set up. If not, just drop us an email, drop us a message, or give us a phone call, and we can get that set up with you. I think you'll all agree it's going to be an absolutely fantastic game-changing feature moving forward. Thank you ever so much for watching me. Please do stay tuned for our up-and-coming masterclasses through April. We have some very good business KPI ones coming up, and some non-returning and client retention masterclasses. A great way moving forward, but do always stay tuned for those. Once again, thank you ever so much for watching me. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Have a lovely week, and I shall speak to you all again soon. Thank you ever so much. Take care. Bye-bye.